Welcome into the patio Harriscope as I've got bugs flying me everywhere. As we're out on the patio after a great rain here in central Mississippi. Man, I love the rain. I am so glad the rain hit. But it is the patio Harriscope brought to you by MyBookie. Use the promo code patio. Go to mybookie.ag. Get in and play today as they got the MyBookie lock of the season back. And first one is an absolute no brainer. We'll get to that as we tell you our locks of the week as we get into the NFL season. But play the locks of the week. Use the promo code PATIO. And, of course, you'll get a first-time sign-up bonus. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie as we'll move along. And, of course, get you those locks of the week. I'm going to go ahead and tell you the lock of the week presented by MyBookie. This week, college football week 0. Take TCU and give up the points. Depending on the shop, you get it at 7.5 or 8.5 with everything going on with the first week of week 0. TCU over North Carolina is an absolute steal this week. TCU should absolutely blister North Carolina in Dublin this weekend. We'll have Joseph Lissy on with us here momentarily. And, of course, Joseph Lissy, a good friend of mine. He has been in the business a long time. We'll get him in to talk some college football. We'll have a high school football preview show coming up for you as well on Wednesday night as we get set for the first week 1 here in the state of Mississippi. MAIS started this past week. MHSA starts this week. And we'll get that to you as well. But we're not going to let Joseph wait any longer. He just jumped in here with us. And, Joseph, it is great to see you, my friend. Hopefully you can hear me.
Oh, absolutely, Jay. Congratulations on the new show. Chomping at the bit, week 0 on the horizon, nothing better. I really like this slate this weekend, but, I mean, it's a wide open race. I think when we look at the top 10, 15 teams in the country, you can make an argument that we could see potential dark horse just like Miami last year to come out there and steal it.
No, I totally agree. And, I love this. Of course, we've still got the Daily Show. We're doing that hand over fist. But, it is. We got a little bit longer time to visit versus than a segment on the radio and stuff. So, hey, before we get going, tell everybody where they can find you. I know you're still punching out a lot of great content.
Yeah, so I do the show now. One of my shows, we're going to run it, is on X. We do it probably Tuesdays and Fridays during the college football season. I also do Bowden Ball, the winning edge with Coach Terry Bowden, formerly of Auburn and Akron. We just started that show. It'll premiere tomorrow night. That's on FanStream Sports. We talk every major top 25 battle from the coach's perspective and the gambling perspective. And then I still do Carver and Lisi at least once a week, college and NFL selections. And then we have a new one, Jake, the model versus the encyclopedia, the algo versus just the normal guy breaking down college football. That's Saturday mornings, 10:30 to noon.
Very good. Very good. All right. Hey, before we get into everything going on and get your opinion on all the national championship contenders, the SEC, your thoughts on everything going on as far as college football is concerned. I just saw this. I want to share this as the SEC is meeting tomorrow and the next day. They've got presidents and they've also got, athletics directors meeting. And let me find it real quick. They just put this out. I'm going to share this real quickly. Get your thoughts on this as the SEC is meeting to basically talk about everything going on with NFL players coming back. And let's kind of look at this together and see as the SEC, get that on the screen there, says, and let me find it real quickly. Sorry about that. There we go, right there. So it says after Monday evening, a video conference of presidents and chancellors, the Southeastern Conference, the conference is issuing the following statement. College athletes, not former professional athletes, have been the heart of the Southeastern Conference. Individuals who choose to leave college athletics, sign professional playing contracts, and compete professionally should not then be permitted to return to college competition. Allowing that to occur will blur the lines between college and professional sports, creating significant competitive equity concerns and reduce opportunities for high school students and other college athletes. And, of course, they'll meet on this tomorrow and the next day. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts, Joseph Lissy, on where we are in college football?
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's unfortunate. Hey, listen, we've seen players like TJ Finley. We see Max Johnson now with Georgia Southern getting the nod at starting quarterback, almost like professional students. But they've, taken their eligibility and they've pushed it as far as they can. When a player leaves college and decides to sign with an agent or go to an NFL camp, whether they make the roster or not, your college career should be done. Look, I understand it's a slight loophole now that we're dealing with, and I blame the NCAA for not getting ahead of this and not implementing any type of guardrails. But at the end of the day, I don't like it. We're gonna now, the situation with LSU is potentially 6 players that were on that roster are now going to lose spots to players that were in an NFL camp. And I love Lane. My daughter went to LSU, Jake. But at the end of the day, we need some sort of guardrails in place to protect student athletes. You're going to have 25, 26, 27-year-old kids and men going up against potentially 18-year-olds. I mean, where is the safety aspect of protecting the athletes as we know it? It's just getting out of control right now.
No, it is. It's absolutely getting out of control. And we'll of course keep an eye on that. Let's pivot to the season. We'll get into your picks for this weekend. I've got a lock of the week. I want to see what you think about. But first,
sure.
I think there's probably 7 or 8 teams that you could shake them up in a hat this year.
Right.
Pull them out. Indiana, Ohio State, Miami, Georgia, Texas, Oregon. You could probably go a little deeper than that. Let's start with the defending national champion, Indiana, and Curt Cignetti. Joseph, I slept on them last year. I said there's no way they could do what they did the year prior. They didn't only do that, they did more. What is next for Indiana?
I talked about it with Coach Bowden, Jake. We talk about dynasties similar to what Nick Saban built in Tuscaloosa over the last, 16 years when he took over in 2009. And you can make the argument, obviously, Kirby Smart on his staff, winning 2 national championships with Georgia, was prior to last year the coach that you would say is in that mold of Nick Saban that keeps that train rolling. But now it's Curt Cignetti, seeing what he was able to do in 2 straight years. And now he understands the landscape. They were undefeated. He got the most out of Fernando Mendoza. Josh Hoover comes over, 29 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. They were an offense last year, Jake. Number 1 in FBS in third down conversions at 56%. Number 1 in turnover margin at 21%. They had 8 games, and this is phenomenal. And I understand in the beginning the non-conference was soft. But think about this. They had 8 games where they rushed for over 200 yards last year. Against FBS opponents, they won those games by an average margin of victory of 42.2 points per game. I mean, that's phenomenal when you think they have 14 starters coming back. We know the schedule is going to be difficult, right? Ohio State's there. They have to step up in competition, but their road matchups are winnable, right? At Michigan, at Washington, at Nebraska. If they could run the table, I think they're 10-2. At worst, I think they're 10-2, Jake. That would be under their number. But again, that's right there. They're going to make the college football playoff, in my opinion, and potentially, again, Cignetti in that type of spot. With a 1-game situation, I like their chances. I'm not betting on them to potentially win the Natty, but to get to the college football playoff, I think they're going to be there.
Let's move into the SEC. How many, of course, we'll come back to the Big Ten. I want to get your thoughts on Ohio State, on Oregon. Is there another team, Washington, USC, or maybe, another Michigan? Can Michigan regroup? But let's go to the SEC.
Sure.
Is it Georgia and Texas and everybody else? Kind of give me your layout of the SEC.
So here's the thing. I bet Georgia. A couple of reasons why I like Georgia. Gunnar Stockton, I think he's more than a game manager. The splits, 73% completion percentage at home, 69% on the road. You talk about his touchdown to interception ratio, 24-7. He also had 10 rushing touchdowns last year. Georgia got back to running the football. Here's a stat, and it's crazy. And you could go back. Every time Georgia rushes for over 200 yards, Jake, dating back to the Jake Eason days with Kirby in 2016, they are 51-1 straight up against FBS and FCS opponents. The only game they lost was last year when they rushed for, I think, 224 against Alabama, and they lost that matchup to Ty Simpson by 3 points, and their 33-game home winning streak was snapped. I mean, Georgia, to me, I understand the sacks a little bit down, untypical, but I like Landon Humphreys. I like the wide receivers. Lucky Lawson comes back. Lucky comes back, tight ends. I think the defense is going to be there. And again, with Bowens and Nate Frazier running the football, I love the offensive line play, and I buy into Kirby. That's why I give the edge to Georgia. Not only that, 6-1 in road spots last year. They won those games by 10.8 points per game. On the flip side, you have Texas 4-3 straight up last year. And I understand the Arch Manning argument. He shook off the ring rust last 8 games of the regular season and he threw for 285 per game. but they were 4-3 in road spots last year. They lost to Ohio State, lost to Florida, lost to Georgia. They didn't cover any of those games. They didn't cover as a 7.5-point favorite against Miss State. They win it in overtime. They didn't cover against a down Kentucky team, 12.5-point favorites, win it in overtime. I worry about them in the road and the splits of Arch Manning, 269 passing per game at home, 229 on the road. He had 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think Parker Livingstone doesn't get enough like hype in that aspect. I know that they take on Cam Coleman, but the security blanket, right, was Parker Livingstone. He was second behind Ryan Wingo with touchdown receptions. So I want to see this team play on the road in tough spots. They have to go to LSU. So, I think it's Georgia and everybody else, but I still think there's some other teams that can make some noise in the conference.
Visiting with Joseph Litsey. You can follow him at Go for the Two on X. And of course, he's got a lot of great content out there. If you want a great college football follow, he is your guy. And of course, goforthe2.com. Let's step into the state of Mississippi, a place you know well, and then we'll bounce right back out.
Yeah.
I've said this before. I'm 50. I've never seen the divide between State and Ole Miss than what it is today, right? I mean, You got one that's got a Heisman hopeful in Trinidad Chambliss, and then you've got Q1 Lacey. We'll see what they do with Pete Golding. You've got Mississippi State and Jeff Levy. They're just trying to survive. Your thoughts on, how high can Ole Miss climb? Can they get back in the playoffs? And if we're sitting here, Joseph Litsey, on the 24th day of August 2027, is Jeff Levy still in Starkville?
I don't know about the second. So here's the thing. Here's my only concern about Ole Miss. As long as Chambliss, and I believe he is, I said if they beat Miami, I think no matter what, win, lose, or draw to Indiana, if they played them, I thought Trinidad Chambliss would have been the number 1 overall selection. I thought he had more upside than Fernando Mendoza. That being said, I worry about Pete Golding now with a full year under his belt with those responsibilities, right? We see DCs. It's a different animal when you're taking on the offseason recruiting, when you don't have to just keep that train in motion. And let's not forget, Charlie Weiss was there through the run of the college football playoff. It was like, hey, they had the emotion. Lane left us. We playing with a chip on our shoulder. So that is my only concern about Ole Miss, is that I want to see now Pete step up into that, realm as being this head coach that Lane was, right? But as long as Chambliss is on, he can win every game on the schedule. And again, that swing game on September 19th with LSU coming to town will be the make it or break it. Well, hey, they are for real again, right? That could propel Ole Miss right back to a top 3 ranking if they dominate Lane Kiffin in that matchup. The concern I have for Miss State, and I've said this, I understand Kamario Taylor comes with a world of talent. I know that Zach Arnett is coming back as DC, but this defense gave up $188 on the ground last year. They weren't physical at the point of attack, in my opinion. They lost 8 and 9 down the stretch by basically 2 touchdowns per game, 14.1. The schedule, Jake, I mean, outside of Tennessee Tech and UL Monroe, where are the wins coming? Like, they don't have, as good as Kamario Taylor is, we'll give him the edge over Jared Curtis and Vanderbilt. Are we giving him the edge over Auburn and Byron Brown? Not really,
Probably
right?
not.
I mean, Byron Brown, one of the most athletic quarterbacks. They have to play what? John Mateer in Oklahoma. They have to play Texas. The schedule is done. I don't give them the quarterback advantage, as dynamic as Kamario is, in any one of those SEC games. So I think they could get to 4. I just can't see this team being a 5 or 6 win football team. But that's me. I would change my assessment. I want to be objective, but that's what I see is like they're under their win total this year.
No, I agree with you 100%. And it's I've said that week 2 matchup at Minnesota
is not easy.
It's not easy, and it's pivotal because you got to turn around and go to South Carolina the following week, and then you get a home game against Missouri before you get into that slate. Hey, we got 2 coaches that just got over the last 6 months got extensions. Kalen DeBoer down at Alabama and Brent Venables a few weeks ago at Oklahoma. Both made the college football playoff. Can they do it again this year?
I think Venables can. I worry about Kalen DeBoer. And again, we talked about this with Coach Bowden as well today. Here's the thing, and tell me if I'm wrong. you're Kalen DeBoer. You're 9-4 in back-to-back seasons. You're taking over for potentially the greatest modern day or maybe college football coach that we've ever seen with 7 national championships. It's like coaching in New York, right? New York
Yeah.
Yankees. It's go big or go home. I don't know how he got the $87 million extension. Again, I think it's more of a, hey, we believe in you, and hopefully that could spark him to, show some enthusiasm with this team. But I've said this. You're going with the redshirt freshman. He's inexperienced. He's a 5-star. That's great. But, Arch Manning was a 5-star too, and he had growing pains last year. So who's to say that Keelan's not going to have growing pains? If they lose that Florida State game week 3, you can't go back to Austin Mack once you fully committed to Keelan Russell. I would have went with the more experienced quarterback in Austin Mack. If you lose the Florida State game, it's like I got the ace in the pocket. Now we're going to turn to Keelan, and maybe we could get and take the pressure off the fan base, because look, Florida State didn't win a road game last year, so that's a very it's a very difficult spot for the Seminoles. I'm just saying, Norvell fighting for his job, so is DeBoer, and they had the worst rushing attack in Alabama history, basically 3.7 yards per carry. They didn't have 1,000-yard rusher. Jam Miller couldn't get it done. David Hill, I don't think he's the answer, but we'll see. And that was with Proctor on the offensive line, #1 draft pick, and you still couldn't run the football. So that is my concern about Alabama. I will say this. Brett Venables, I thought, deserved an extension. I thought they rushed Mateer back too early. If I was Oklahoma last year, I would have rested Mateer against Texas, and again use it as a flyer. Hey, we lost to Texas. If we had a fight for our college football playoff appearance, using that ace in the hole, right? They forced him back. He played well down the stretch, but he still wasn't 100%. But he won against Alabama, and he goes on the road and scores the winning touchdown against Tennessee. Battle-tested team. They covered 4 out of 5 games. They knocked off Lenora Sellers, knocked off last year Joey Aguilar, and knocked off Ty Simpson, all in road spots, and covered those games. I buy more into Oklahoma than I do Alabama this year.
No, I agree with you 100%. That's why we're friends. We're on the same wavelength here.
It's crazy,
with Joseph.
right?
It is. It really is when you look at it, at the body of work for Oklahoma. What about Florida and Auburn? Two teams that dipped into the group of 6 to grab coaches. Mm-hmm. John Summerall out of Tulane to Florida, and then Alex Golish out of South Florida. And then he brings over Byron Brown, who you spoke of earlier. Can they make some noise in the conference this year? They
can. So if you're asking me, Florida, Auburn, I think Auburn has a little bit more to work with than Florida. And I know offensively, they have Dallas Wilson, Singleton, they have Jaden Pod. To your point, Aaron Philo comes from Georgia Tech. They didn't win a road game last year. Florida State and Florida were combined 0-11 in road spots last year, and Florida lost by 15.1 points per game. They got blown out in road spots. I just worry about year one. I think the schedule is very difficult. I think Florida at best could be a 6-6 football team. I do believe that John Summerall is the right guy for the job. He's a blue-collar coach. I think he'll get it right. But I still think they are 2 or maybe 3 years away from maybe getting back to where Florida needs to be or expects to be. I just think the cupboard was bare from Napier. He was a motivator. I didn't like the defensive side of the ball from how he coached, but we'll see how that plays out. Auburn, though, look at that schedule, and I know it's a revenge spot for Baylor. I think that's a difficult game in Atlanta with DJ Lagway. They have to play Florida, but before they play Tennessee, Jake, I think they could be undefeated. And I'm not sold on Tennessee. It's one of my unders this year. We can get into that. So Auburn has the potential, I believe, to start maybe 5-0. And then what do you need? 2 more wins down the stretch? Maybe with the Iron Bowl hanging in the balance. I still like Golish, physical coach. Brings a mentality to this program, something that Hugh and obviously Brian Harsin lacked. And again, DJ Durkin in that front 7, if you've watched Auburn last year, they were one of the most physical in the conference, 98 rushing yards allowed per game, but they lose at home to teams like Missouri and Kentucky because your offense couldn't bail you out with Jackson Arnold and Ashton Daniels. If they had a hint of a passing attack last year and could get it into motion, they would probably be a 7 or an 8 win football team last year. Shocking that Hugh Freeze couldn't get the quarterback situation right, but I think Golish did with Byron Brown.
Before we pivot out of the SEC, 9-game schedules for everybody.
Yep.
I would think that's going to be a loss more for, obviously half the league.
Right.
I've said this all year long. The 10-2s have got to accept you may become 9-3s, and 9-3s may become 8-4s. How many SEC teams make the playoff this year in your mind?
I think 2. How about that? I think it's 2 because of the schedule. I think it could be like, Georgia and Oklahoma. I really do. I think a 3rd team possibly. But again, it comes down to these marquee top 10 games. How do you show when you're Texas and you have Ohio State coming to Austin and you didn't lose a home game last year? If you lose that game by double digits, what does that do to the committee's psyche when we look at the Longhorns big picture and say, hey, they lost to a Big Ten team and they're 9-3 yet again. Are we going to put them back in? If it's between Texas, let's just say, and I don't think this will be the case, but Notre Dame again, knowing how Notre Dame didn't get in last year, and I believe they made the right decision, is the committee going to take Texas or they're going to take a team like Notre Dame? And that's the concern I think that they have. Or if you have a team like Michigan or Penn State on the cusp, where does that come down? Knowing the body of work over the past couple of years of some of these programs, I think that's a concern for the SEC moving forward.
All right, let's dive out of the SEC. You mentioned the Domers. We'll go straight there. I love Marcus Freeman. I think he's one of the best coaches in college football. I think Notre Dame's lucky to have him back. Could have bolted to the NFL. How good are the Domers this year? Vegas, as you know, loves Notre Dame this year.
They love them, and that's where I'm a little hesitant because I had Reggie Brooks on the show, former standout for the Fighting Irish. He loves Aeneas Williams, but he doesn't love the backups and the running back room as much as Jadarius Price and obviously Jeremiah Love. I believe C.J. Carr has the tools. How does the offense look? Are they still run heavy or do they let C.J. Carr cook? Secondary should be elite. Going to come down to those 2 marquee games. They got BYU and obviously Miami. What happens there? I think the Miami game is tough. They're already 6.5-point favorites, but I like Mensa. So I think that's the matchup. Again, C.J. Carr is going to have to bring it in that game. I think they could be at worst, again, 10-2. I don't see Notre Dame falling off a cliff and being 8-4 because of their defense. The one concern I have is the rushing attack as dominant as it was last year, where they could just take games over. I'm not so sure about that, so I'm a little hesitant. I think they make the college football playoff, but I think it's more for their defense than anything else right now.
All right, let's go back into the Big Ten. You mentioned Indiana and the stats that were mind-numbing, what you said about the way they ran the football. If you go back and look, and you know this because you cover it so much, Michigan 3 years ago, Ohio State 2 years ago, Indiana, they ran the football at an amazing clip. And to me, that's the biggest difference in the Big Ten and the SEC right now is that the way the Big Ten is running the football. So Indiana possibly in the playoffs. Let's talk Ohio State, Oregon, and then maybe who else in the Big Ten?
Illinois is an intriguing team with Caden Hauser. Again, I like this team, but I'm not sold on Michigan. I'm not sold on Bryce Underwood just yet. I need to see more. I understand the athleticism, but this team, when they didn't run the football, and again, they were undefeated 8-0 every time they pounded the rock and won by, 14, 15 points per game, but they only average 186 yards through the air. They couldn't beat teams like Oklahoma. And I know that was Bryce Underwood's big game under his belt, but you see them on the road against, like I said, Oklahoma, USC. I'm not enamored with USC, and they lose that game by double digits. So I think in the Big Ten, if you're asking me right now, I think it could be Penn State. And the only reason why I say that is because I believe in Matt Campbell. I believe in Rocco Becht. I believe that Rocco Becht might be the best quarterback that they've had over the last 6 or 7 or 10 or 15 years. Trace McSorley, good, but James Franklin, Bill O'Brien, Christian Hackenberg, they never could coach up a 5-star guy at the quarterback position. You're telling me you couldn't get somebody? All these other schools in the Big Ten got these 5-star quarterbacks, and look at just the lineage of Penn State quarterbacks. Matt Campbell coached Brock Purdy, and he's got Rocco Becht. That alone gives Matt Campbell the edge over James Franklin, in my opinion. Plus, he knocked off Lincoln Riley when he was at Ohio State. He coaches well in big spots. I think he plateaued a little bit at Ames and should have left earlier. Maybe, like some of these other coaches, even Luke Fickell, you could throw into that mix with Cincinnati, how he threw, his career away moving to Wisconsin. But that's my point. I think that Penn State schedule-wise has the ability to be there. So it would be Indiana, Ohio State. I would pick Penn State. Again, I like Oregon. I don't love them. To your point about running the football, the 2 games against Indiana that they lost, 83 and 91 yards against the Hoosiers. When they step up in competition, Dan Lanning gets smacked around. They get knocked around by Indiana. 2 years ago, they lose to Jim Knowles and that defense for Ohio State. It's not really good, body of work. So I can't buy all in, even though they have 18 returning starters coming back to that program. I think there's a couple of teams that, if they get a good run, could be there. Like I said, Illinois, I like Caden Hauser. I like this team overall. Again, expectation isn't high, but I like Brett Bielema. And again, they knock off USC last year. Keep an eye out for them. I think the upgrade for quarterback with Calandria for Nebraska, again, Matt Rule technically on the hot seat. I think they could be there. But Iowa's another team. And I know the kid throws 5 touchdowns in the spring game and, in the fall game a couple of weeks ago. But you look at the defense and they lost how many games last year? 4 by 3.7 points per game. They were in every game last year. And as long as they can run the football, we know about the offensive line. As a deep shot, they can be there. So I still think 3. I think it's Ohio State. I do believe that it's Indiana. And I'm willing to bank on, Penn State as being the potential 3rd team over Oregon. But we'll see how it plays out.
And we're visiting with Joseph Litzy, goforthe2.com, also part of Sirius XM Satellite Radio, the FWAA. Make sure to give him a follow on X, and of course, check out his shows. Great college football content all year long. Gracious enough to give us some extended time talking college football. I 1,000% value his opinion on all things college football. All right, so Miami out of the ACC. Is it Miami and then maybe SMU, or does Cristobal himself this year? We've seen those moments.
Yes.
But, or is the talent? Look, I said this, and you may disagree.
Right.
I feel like Tony, the wide receiver for Miami,
right.
I feel like he's pound for pound. If me and you were if we're on the playground and we're picking players, I may pick Tony over everybody first, just because how dynamic he is. You can move him in the slot. You can put him outside. You can put him in the backfield. Is it Miami and everybody else in the ACC?
I think it's everybody else, but again, I think there's some teams that could challenge, and so I'm in the camp that I believe Darian Mintz is an upgrade to Carson Beck, and I'm not going to look at Carson Beck, Arizona Cardinals, right? Maybe he was banged up last year, but I look at the throws down the stretch against A&M and against some of the teams that they played, and Carson Beck was throwing a lot of hitches to Malachi Tony. It was yards after catch. C.J. Daniels had to make dynamic plays, during the playoff run. I didn't see Carson Beck wow me with the passing attack. He was more of a game manager in that type of run that they had to play Indiana. I believe Darian Mintz is a significant upgrade. He had 5 300-yard performances. He completed 66% of his passes. I like Mark Fletcher. Offensive line, they have 3 starters coming back. I like the weapons that they have, and the defense there with Marquise Lightfoot and Moton, I think are going to be there. So, again, it is Miami potentially and everybody else. I think if we're talking defensive teams that can compete, I think Louisville's one because of the secondary. That secondary brings back 3 starters. They only allowed 189 passing yards per game, Jake. And think about this. Lincoln Kleinholz, could be the best quarterback that they've had in the Jeff Brom era in Louisville. When you think about Tyler Shuck, Jack Plummer, Miller Moss, the most they threw was 23, 24 touchdown passes. Kleinholz could have won the job at Ohio State. He has the potential with Brom to maybe throw for 30 touchdowns. So I think Louisville's live. I'll just say this. I'm not sold about SMU secondary. They allowed 283 through the air last year. In the 4 losses, it was 341 per game. That secondary needs to get better. I believe in Kevin Jennings. Rhett Lashley, very good coach. I just not sold on the defense. What about Georgia Tech, though? I mean, here's the thing. Brent Key is a good coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, he
Justice
is.
James comes over. They have the UPenn transfer that stepped up, Malachi Hostley last year, Alberto Mendoza. I'm not saying he's Haynes King, but he could be similar. He doesn't have to be really Haynes King when you have an offensive line that can pound the rock for a $192 on the ground. 6.5 win total, I think, is disrespectful. I did bet Georgia Tech at 35-1 as a lottery ticket. I mean, Brett Key has covered 3 straight against Georgia. I mean, why is that important? Because if you believe Georgia's the best team or one of, he's closed the gap from where Georgia Tech was and preaches physicality. I think people are sleeping on G-Tech this year. 6.5. I'm over their win total as well.
No, I love it. I love it a lot. I really do. And I'm with you. I mean, if you can close the gap on Georgia annually in a rivalry there that's really not been a rivalry, then that's big. That's huge.
And it comes in the interior play. If you watch the games play out, held Georgia and Gunnar Stockton to what, 16 points in that last regular season game. 2 years ago, they were catching 23 and Bobby Dodd. They lost it by 12. Obviously, 2 years ago with Carson Beck, they pushed them to the 8 overtimes. I mean, they've been in each and every game against the Georgia Bulldogs. And again, that's how I measure whether this team potentially could be there. I like the transfer talent they have. Again, styles make fights. They have a week 2 game against Faison Brandon in Tennessee. It's at home. I think they could be favored there. We'll see how it plays out.
Let's go to the Big 12 real quickly. Texas Tech, BYU. I know the coaches out there, or the media rather, coaches picked BYU. Is it just those two, or are you looking at a team maybe like Oklahoma State that's pulled in a really good coaching staff on paper from North Texas, a really good quarterback? Is it somebody else? Is it Utah?
Well, how about usual? So I like Kenny Dillingham. People forget, Jake.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm buying into Cutter Boley. How about that? Cutter Boley most likely will win the job. They still have Mikey Keene, the veteran back there. I think if he, won the job or was forced into duty, I think he could be, make dividends and pay dividends. I believe in this team. People forget that Texas Tech lost to Arizona State last year. Will Hammond and that offense were handcuffed by the defense of the Sun Devils. Again, they were an 8-win football team last year. 6.5 for Kenny Dillingham. People don't give Kenny Dillingham enough credit. I like the wide receiver room. The defense is physical, in my opinion. I think they're going to shock some people. Now, the schedule is very difficult. They have a road game against BYU and some of the others. They play A&M early. But I think they could be a 9-win football team. Call me crazy. I think they match up against BYU. If we're looking at other teams in the Big 12 that maybe can make some noise, look, I think Joey McGuire has done a fantastic job, but I'm not willing. I can't believe that Texas Tech is that cheap, considering when you think about the national championship odds, Jake, they're 20-1 here in New Jersey. The closest contender in the Big 12 is BYU at 100-1. Is it that? I don't believe it's that wide of a gap.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, I can't buy in. Look, if Texas Tech lost a game early, I would maybe consider it then. But I can't buy in now, knowing where their odds are to win the Big 12. Again, I think other teams that can make some noise in the Big 12. I mean, everybody likes Arizona. I have concerns about Fafita. I think for the value at 18-1, it would be Arizona State for me.
Got a quick comment from Jordan on Facebook. Says, hey, if Texas is 10-2, the committee would take them over Notre Dame just because of the brand. But you're talking about 2 big brands there.
Right.
I mean, you got the Notre Dame brand and you got the Texas brand.
You do. And again, what are the 2 losses, right? Is Notre Dame's losses BYU and Miami, like similar to last year? So they're 2 top opponents. They lose, then you give the edge to Texas. But if Texas is, let's just say Notre Dame crushes BYU, they crush, obviously, let's say Miami. They cover the line. And let's just say we'll give them 2 other losses on the schedule. Are we then going to say, okay, who did Texas lose to? Texas doesn't play Georgia this year, but if they lose to A&M, they lose to maybe Ohio State and get smashed. Where are the marquee wins? Are they winning at home? Are they winning on the road? And that's where I think the committee has to break it down. I do feel the committee made the right choice last year. Head-to-head's got to matter. Why do we play these games if you're not going to take head-to-head coming? It doesn't matter if it's first game, last game, and when nobody said It's who's playing the best at the end of the regular season. It's what teams have the best resume and what teams are allowed to get in based off that. And we'll see how this plays out this year.
So before we let you go, a couple more minutes here with Joseph
Yeah.
Lissy. One of the things that we've noticed here in the state of Mississippi, and I know it's not like we've just come upon this, you can see it, is the Big Ten with the money that they've had. And they've started slipping in here. I'll give you a great example. They've got a running back, one of the tops in the country, Tyson Robinson from Brandon, Mississippi. He's going to Michigan. Their quarterback, Sladen Shack's going to Illinois. We've seen Miami slip in here. They grabbed a running back out of Picayune, Mississippi. Boy, I tell you what, that Big Ten money and then that Miami money is very, very strong in SEC country.
So think about what the Big Ten did, right? So they secure the Northeast, right? You have the Rutgers, and it doesn't matter whether Rutgers is big or not, or competitive, because they have the New York market. Their teams are visible on local stations here in New York. We talk about the brand. They secure those Pac-12 teams. Why? Because now you have the whole landscape covered for the conference, right? You have the Midwest, and then you have teams like Nebraska and Iowa competing. You have the whole body of the United States encompassed for their brand, and they're able to spend money where other teams potentially aren't. And when you go back, it's no longer, Jake, right, where Nick Saban would his recruiting stick, and it wasn't a knock, was, hey, you want to practice against all pros in practice with the ability to go to the NFL and be a number one draft pick and increase your draft status and play on Sundays, right? It's no longer that way. It's where can I get the bag of cash? I'm still going to get recognized. I could go on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, make a couple of videos, and I don't even care. Hence why these NFL guys are going back to college, right? I mean, if they cared so much about winning the Super Bowl, they'd be on the NFL roster. I mean, it's amazing. I hate to say it because I'm a little bit older than you, but, the tradition, the pageantry of what we grew up with, is unbelievable. And, I get the Mississippi guys because I said, hey, Mississippi State is under their winter. You don't know Miss State football. Michael Haddix, Michael Davis, Keon Coleman. I know them all. Bowie, the running backs back in the early 1993. I remember the 1992 game. I don't know if Miss State, right? Miss State goes on the road with Michael Davis and Jackie Sherrill. They go into Austin to, I believe, play Butch Hadnot and Peter Gardere. That game, look, that was ES. I used to have that game on tape back in the day. That's how old I am, but that's besides it.
Hey, who's your final? Look, that's great recall. And you're right, and those are great memories for Mississippi State fans. Who's your Final Four? Do you have it in the playoff? Do you have a matchup and a champion?
My Final Four, and again, we would have to see how this plays out, right? But again, I would say my Final Four would be Miami, Georgia, Ohio State, and I'll take a flyer on. I think Arizona State's going to be there again. I really do. I think Arizona State. I like Arizona State. Again, I know the Big 12 is jam-packed, but I believe in this team, and I believe in Kenny Dillingham. I think if we're looking Lane Kiffin-esque in the Big 12, it's Joey, right, because he gets it. But I think Kenny Dillingham has done a great job with the NIL money that he now has in Arizona State. He's preached to the fan base and the boosters. It wouldn't shock me if they go 10-2, 11-1, and he's back in the college football playoff.
And who do you have as a champion?
It's Georgia. I bet them at plus 850. Look, I just think talent-wise, offensively, and we saw the physicality again. Hey, credit Golding and Trinidad Chambliss. He made unbelievable plays. And I a knock on Bobo. I didn't think he game planned in the second half. He started to go status quo with the chips in the middle of the table, sort of cookie cutter. Hey, we'll try to run it. He wasn't aggressive on first and second down. They put that offense at a little bit of a disadvantage. But again, in these type of, when we know certain things, the one thing that's constant for me is Georgia, I believe, will be there, and I believe in Kirby, and I believe in that staff enough to say they're only worth, for me, the preseason value of plus 850 or 8-1.
We just did 35 minutes of college football, and we didn't even speak Lane Kiffin and LSU. Can you believe that?
I know. Amazing.
So does that mean that they're not, in your mind, they're not going to do anything? Or
we spoke about them a little with the transfer report.
Yeah.
I have been in. I thought last year was a make it or break it year for Brian Kelly. I was, really let down how that offensive play. And I understand maybe Nuss was hurt, but the way they couldn't run the football with Caden Durham, Harlan Berry, Caleb Jackson. I mean, they had the playmakers. It just did not look like an LSU caliber football team to me. And it wasn't just offensively; it was more defensively as well. When I had players like Harold Perkins and I see Diego Pavia putting up 31 with Eli Stowers in Nashville, it's just like, where is the LSU defense that they hung their hat on? Even during the Ed O days and even obviously the Les Miles days, where was that defense? And again, $3.5 million to bring back Blake Baker. He better step up, Jake. I'm concerned. I want to take more of a tempered approach on LSU. Love Sam Levitt. Love the offensive playmakers. But no matter how many NFL guys they got right now, I really need to see that defense step up. To me, it's not the Glenn Dorsey days. Patrick Peterson, Honey Badger can't take a game over the way they did back years ago. So I need that defense to step up. Until I see it, I can't buy in right now.
Perfect. He's Joseph Lissy. Joseph, tell everybody where to find you and your shows. We want them to come see you.
Yeah, FanStream Sports, Bowden Ball, The Winning Edge. We start tomorrow night, 7 p.m., me and Coach Bowden, Tuesdays and Friday nights. And then I'll follow all my work on X. I mean, me and Carver do shows. All of my shows, we're going to run it, will be on throughout the week. And then Saturday morning, starting obviously week 1, not 0, I'll be the model versus the encyclopedia. I'm taking on the algo, Jake.
Very good. Hey, let's do this again soon and get you back on if you get time on.
Let's do it.
On 105.9. We got to chalk it up a lot during college football.
Absolutely. I'm here. I love talking ball with you. Love the show. Anytime you need me.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Talk to you
soon. Anytime. You got
it. Joseph Lissy, and of course, get him at Go for the Two, and you can find him on all the platforms. He's one of the good ones, man. Why somebody hasn't snagged that dude and put him, and I know he does a lot. He's on Sirius XM, satellite radio. He's also on several platforms. I'd put him on the big ones, the 4 letters, all of it. He is as good as they come as far as breaking down college football. All right, before we get out of here tonight, a lot of SEC and college football, a little housekeeping. First off, we're brought to you by MyBookie. Get in and use the promo code PATIO. The promo code PATIO. You're going to get a sign-up bonus. Go to mybookie.ag. Get in and play. And, of course, we've got a lot of stuff coming up with MyBookie, like the MyBookie lock of the season. And I will go ahead and tell you right now, the lock of the week, TCU over North Carolina and Dublin this weekend. You take TCU and you give those points up, and you're going to make some Christmas money, a lot of Christmas money. And coming up on Wednesday, we'll have Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag, in with us. We'll also do some high school football. We're going to open the panel for questions. If you've got a question about a high school matchup, we got some big ones coming up this weekend. Brandon taking on Tupelo. You got Oak Grove with a big matchup. Starkville with a big matchup this weekend. All kinds of great matchups in high school sports coming up this weekend. Make sure to give me a follow on X at Jake Wim. Also right here on Facebook. It's wide open, Jake Wimberly. YouTube, Jake Wimberly as well. Get the show. We can't wait. Week 0 is here. We appreciate Joseph Lissy jumping in. We appreciate you guys watching tonight. Have a great Monday night. And, of course, if you're going out to junior high ball games tomorrow night, enjoy that. We'll be back on Wednesday night. Got a busy week. Junior college football starts here in the state of Mississippi. Heinz Eagle football. And, of course, we'll be on the air all week long on 105.9 The Zone in Jackson. Have a great night. Promo code PATIO, mybookie.ag.